That was just amazing. So glad to hear all the great stuff that Microsoft is doing. I'm Brendan Schulman, Vice President of Policy and Legal Affairs. And when you think about where we were just a few years ago, just 3 years ago, there was no Part 107. The rules for scaling commercial operations and enterprise operations did not exist. And really, that's why we advocate for reasonable and appropriate rules so that all of you can get the most out of drone technology. So we are on your side. And the way we do that is to advocate for legislation and regulation that address real and actual safety, privacy, and security concerns. And we also develop safety features that address many of the top concerns that people have about drone technology. And I'm really proud to say that really DJI is leading the industry when it comes to safety. If you think back at our record of technological innovation just in the safety area, of course, as many of you know, we've had geofencing for years. We were the first to deploy at wide scale a system of keeping drones away from airports and other sensitive facilities that might raise security or safety concerns. And we upgraded that system twice in the past 4 years to change the shape of the geofencing in collaboration with aviation industry stakeholders to better reflect the risk at airport runways, and also to allow more flexibility to the side of runways so that those of you with authority to fly have more flexibility and more ways to get what we call unlocked and actually go out and do your great work. We also stepped up our support to provide fast unlocking in under 30 minutes and in many cases under 5 minutes. And as Jan was mentioning, the QEP program designed to make sure that public safety agencies have access to the technology wherever they operate. We also pioneered all these other safety features: altitude limitation, return to home, obstacle sensing, a knowledge quiz to make sure that people know what the rules are for safe operation, as well as Aeroscope Remote ID, a working, real-world remote ID solution to provide security and accountability, the things that the government, regulators, and security officials are saying they need to ensure that drones can be operated safely. And I'm glad to say that Aeroscope is making a difference. I wish I could tell you some of the stories we hear. They're sort of sensitive, but trust me, we have great results from Aeroscope making a difference to heads of state, to facilities, critical facilities, and airports. People are understanding already how they can use remote ID to address the real concerns that they have about drone technology and take action to mitigate threats and risks. And really, that means we're succeeding in delivering something to the world, not just an innovation in what you do with the drone, but also to address those policy concerns. And of course, as Jan mentioned, we announced our commitment to ADS-B receivers. Starting next year, all drones above 250 grams that we release will contain an ADS-B receiver which listens for other aviation traffic and alerts pilots to potential collision risks. To us, this is an incredible commitment that we can make. We haven't been asked to do it. We did it because it was the right thing to do. I asked my engineering team back in headquarters, okay, we've done all the safety stuff for a number of years. How much time have we spent doing those things? How do we measure that commitment? And we had them count up the hours on just 3 safety features: the geofencing, the remote ID Aeroscope, and the work that already existed on ADS-B, what we call AirSense. And they came back to me and said, we've spent at least 30,000 hours working on just those features since 2017. It's hard to put that number in perspective. So if you think about it, it's 5 engineers working full-time for nearly 3 years just on those 3 safety features. From our perspective, it's an incredible commitment. It shows that we're serious about solving challenges and problems. Unfortunately, you might not know that all this work exists out there and these features actually are making a difference because of the headlines that we often see. Reports that drone risk is increasing sharply, or that drones are 2 drones are coming within airliners at 14,000 feet. But it's not just the headlines. I recently came across this. Some of you may have seen me taking this around. This is a Lego set. Put it on screen there. This Lego set depicts a drone that is stealing a statue from a town square, being chased by a police helicopter firing a net. So it's a counter-UAS solution, I suppose. Worse yet, that statue, if you take a close look, my kids put this thing together, so we actually took a look at it. That is a firefighter's memorial statue. Okay? So this is what Lego is suggesting to our kids that what drones do. What a contrast to what we've heard this week at AirWorks in terms of firefighters putting drones to use, saving lives and property. So this is a huge concern to us, right? Because we know that drones are not stealing and probably can't steal a statue from a town square. Instead, they're saving lives, right? And as we've already said, we've been tracking just the public reports in the news. There are actually some good news stories out there, not so many, but some. We find them and we count them, and at least 279 people have been rescued from peril, in many cases life-threatening situations, through the use of small drones just in the past couple years. So we need to get the message out about this, right? What do we do on our team? We educate policymakers. What are drones actually doing? How can they be operated in a safe way? We advocate for solutions to real problems, right? So remote ID, that's security, that's accountability, things that bring real solutions to policy challenges. And that remote ID solution, we've been asking the FAA to get it into place ever since 2017 when I served on the Aviation Rulemaking Committee. It's still a couple of years away. FAA is taking its time. So we're moving ahead of that with Aeroscope, but not just Aeroscope. We're working on the Drone Advisory Committee to find a way to implement voluntary remote ID across the industry. So it's not just DJI that has a remote ID solution, but everyone is doing it even before the FAA can figure it out. And we're also working on the UAS safety team to develop other safety enhancements, including a standardized reporting form, so that when pilots see drones, they can fill out all the appropriate information, and perhaps we can start to learn something from what's going on out there. To learn more about these efforts from us and others in the industry, please join us in this room, in the ballroom, at 2 p.m. We have a panel of aviation safety experts, including Los Angeles International Airport, which many of us visited on the way here. And we would be delighted to inform you as to what we're doing together and how all of you can help engage in that mission. We also released the Elevating Safety vision that we have for what we can do, the commitments we can take, as well as what the entire industry and drone community can do to help address safety and make sure that things like this do not become the public narrative, that instead we are addressing and solving the challenges that we have. And part of that investigation in elevating safety, if you look at part 2 of it, was a deep and broad look at what is really in this drone sighting data. We looked at the 3 official main sources of information: the FAA Drone Sighting Database, the EASA sighting database, as well as UK AirProcs. And unfortunately, as we set out in the report, these were not informative, useful sources of information for us to try to figure out what to do next on aviation safety. And of course, there are actual reports of collisions. Those are not useful either. We found at least 6 reports of actual drones colliding with airplanes that turned out to be untrue. They weren't drones, they were bats or birds or nothing at all. Here's an example from New Zealand. In March of 2018, a report that a drone caused a pilot to crash, and there are all kinds of dramatic pictures. About a year later, after the investigation, it turned out it wasn't true, it wasn't a drone, it was a defect in the windshield. And as Alan Levin pointed out in his tweet in Bloomberg in response to another drone collision that was not true, this was the Aeromexico airliner, as he pointed out, the story that provided the factual answer, the real story of what happened with that airliner, which was a radome collapse due to pressure, not a drone, got 1/1000th the traffic of the original story. So we're dealing with 1,000 to 1 coverage of negative versus positive. And what's the problem with that? Well, there's 2 problems. And by the way, maybe some of these are honest mistakes. I can understand how things in the air look like drones. This is a bird that looks remarkably like a Phantom 4 over the water. So these might be mistakes, and that's understandable. But here are the problems with it. Number 1, it's demonizing the industry, right? We have a tough time when that's the prevailing narrative, and that leads policymakers to make rules and regulations and restrictions that could impede all of your operations, resulting in fewer life-saving rescues because it's harder and more restrictive to use the technology, and you can't use it in as many places. Number 2, and I think most importantly, we don't know what to do on safety if we don't have facts, if we don't know what the real risks are. So these are distractions, right? The myths about what drones are doing on safety, security, privacy are leading to bad policy results. Now, we don't shy away from actual risk. We understand there are risks out there that we need to address, both as the leading company as well as an industry. And we're happy to talk about them. So these are 2 actual collisions, data points that are very important. I'm sure you're familiar with them. The Black Hawk helicopter collision in New York City with the Phantom 4. I think about 2 years ago, we assisted in the NTSB investigation. And you might not know about this one, in Israel, a collision between an agriculture helicopter and a drone. That second one, those were both authorized, compliant operations. They did not see each other. So it was an accident. And we know accidents happen. but maybe we can do something about real accidents. We also had these data points, 2 videos uploaded to YouTube from people who are apologetic. You know, these were near misses. In the first case, Hollywood, Florida, way too close to a helicopter, as well as Niagara Falls in that second video. These were 2 data points that told us something. So 4 altogether showing real risk with evidence, and it told us we could do something about low altitude helicopter traffic. And that's what led us to commit to ADS-B, what we call AirSense, in all of our drones above the 250 gram class, so we could actually make a difference to the safety situation. So here's our mission. We, on our policy team, there's about 9 of us, and it's a global effort. We want to proactively address the real concerns of government. We need to do that together. We have to get ahead of things. Also develop technology solutions to real problems, and really advocate to protect your access to innovation. And that's by advocating for policies that are based on facts, not on myths. We need that data, we need the evidence. We need to know what the goal is. What is the safety, security, and privacy goal? We will lead with solutions. But we need your help. We can't do it together. So between now and the end of the year, I have 3 things I'd like you to do. First, join the network of drone enthusiasts, also called NODE, if you're not already a member. This is supported by the Alliance for Drone Innovation as well as DJI. It's a grassroots movement and platform. You put in your contact information. When there's a policy that comes up, whether at the federal, state, or local level, it provides a really easy mechanism for you to tell your story about what you're doing with drones and to advocate in favor of good policies or against those that might hurt your interests. Also, please comment on the FAA's proposed remote ID rule that is supposed to come out in December. We very much support remote ID, but we need to make sure that the burdens and costs of doing remote ID on you are not too high, and that your privacy is protected. Your operations are going to be part of remote ID in some way. You're going to be identifying yourself. We want to make sure that that operation as you're flying isn't just pulled into a giant database somewhere and misused. So please look at the rule, understand how it might impact you, and send a comment within 60 days to the FAA once that rule comes out, probably in December. And finally, if you haven't done this already, please visit and write to your lawmakers. So if you have an enterprise drone program and you haven't met with your city council, your mayor, your state legislative assembly member, your member of Congress, senator, please do that, because we have a huge educational mission to work on together, and we need to share all these great stories, not just inside this AirWorks conference, which is wonderful, but also with the people who are making the policies that will impact you.